This is KMA Talk Radio. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of fine cigars. Okay, here we go. Broadcasting live, this is KMA Talk Radio. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of fine cigars. With your hosts, Honest Abe and Adam K. the Brewmeister. Listen to the show anywhere in the free world at KMATalkRadio.com.
I like to smoke them like some Winston Churchill, like John Kennedy, yeah. Remember Coach Red Auerbach, smoked up for victory, yeah. Well, you can take my wife, you can take my car, but you can't take my big cigar. My cigar.
Good morning, loyal listeners, libertarians, lovers of the leaf, everyone out there in Radio Land. Welcome to another exciting edition of KMA Talk Radio, broadcasting live on this, the 8th of February, where we're not expecting 6 more weeks of winter, thanks to Punxsutawney Phil. In this lovely West Palm Beach, Florida, I'm Adam K. the Brewmeister. With me, of course, Mr. Honest Abe.
Good morning.
Paul, the producer.
I'm back.
Hello, Paul.
Did you miss me?
Where you
No.
going?
Yeah, I was. All right. You know what? That's offensive.
I need a little more volume if you can.
One moment.
We can give you more volume.
Thank you, sir. Most appreciate. I don't know if that was mine. I don't think that was mine.
He's playing the cool play.
I don't think either one of you guys have found my knob yet.
Oh no, I wasn't trying
Keep
to
going,
find your knob.
Keep going till you find my knob, Adam. There you go. That's my knob, Adam.
I
Well
got you,
done.
knob, Abe.
He found my knob.
That's the same knob that I've been touching before. It just wasn't enough for you.
There you go.
And sitting in the studio with us, all the way from the hills of the Carolinas, Mr. William Cooper is back with us. Coop,
Good morning, guys.
what's happening?
Slumming it.
Yeah,
You're like in a sweatshirt, like a
He's
pregnant
freezing.
housewife.
I was like, yeah, you know, it was cold. I came up from Miami. It was actually cold last night.
Don't you guys get winter?
We do, but
How
not.
can it be cold here for you?
You know, when you have the air conditioner cranked up a bit.
Come on.
He wasn't prepared
I
to
wasn't.
experience the cold
You've been
weather
eating
of
like
Florida.
you've been getting ready to go for hibernation.
I know, it's true. The BNS, oh boy.
Jeez.
I don't mean to. I mean, it's awesome to have Coop here, but it's kind of funny to me that last week you had 3 beautiful women in here and I wasn't here.
That was
And-
perfect, actually.
And now, I got Coop.
Thanks. Were you at a wedding last week?
One over
No,
the
it's
bow.
even worse.
He had a baby moon.
I was on a baby moon.
A baby moon?
Coop,
Yeah.
did you ever go on a baby moon with any of your for any of your kids?
What is a baby moon? Like a honeymoon for babies?
When you're pregnant.
Before you have the baby, you go for one last hurrah.
So your wife is uncomfortable.
Right.
She can't drink. She's irritable. And let's go on a vacation together. Sounds like fun.
it was her idea.
And they took the baby.
Yes.
The first baby.
They took
Yeah.
the 1.5-year-old.
We did
yeah.
take the 1.5.
Yeah,
my-
this was such a nice idea.
It
Sounds like
was
a
nice.
great vacation to me.
I'm so glad.
Where does this stuff come up with that he comes up with? I've never.
Probably Pinterest.
Yeah.
Seriously.
I've never heard of this stuff.
How about push gift?
Yeah, we do that.
We know you do that, dude.
What is push gift?
Exactly. How old are you?
52.
So I guess we're from the same
Yeah,
era.
yeah.
A push gift. I guess you have to buy her a gift for pushing out.
Yeah.
I pushed in. I got nothing.
Right, exactly. What the heck?
I pushed in. I got
A
nothing.
push gift?
Yeah, she gets a piece of jewelry or something.
What?
For
Vivacious.
This is some true shit, by the way.
Is this a stuff that's just being made up? He's
Well, I mean, somebody made it up along the way. Pretty sure a woman.
Cartier.
Oh, right.
But
Oh, was this developed by the Hallmark Channel?
I don't know, but some people just ate it up.
Oh my
And they
goodness.
were now traditionally, I think the baby moon is supposed to be like on the first baby.
We did that too.
We know, Paul.
You took a second baby moon.
We
You took a
are
second.
aware.
It was just a nice little vacation to the Keys.
Listen,
it was, we picked up a rat, by the way. My wife's
Oh.
car, there was a rat in the engine that, because it was so cold there, it was 35 degrees one night. When we got home, I smelled something in the car, and I opened up the hood of her car, and I looked down, and, sitting behind the fan was a dead rat.
Nice.
From Isla Mirada.
Was that the push gift? I'm just saying.
I mean,
It is the year of the rat, by the way.
It is a year to rat.
I mean, listen, between push gifts and baby moons, I'd never have kids.
yeah, it's a lot of
It's
money.
like an incentive not to get your wife pregnant.
And what was it, the daddy boot camp?
I didn't go to the daddy boot camp,
Hold on.
though.
Don't
It was
bullshit-
canceled.
don't
It was
bullshit-
canceled.
Don't bullshit our audience. You signed up. You paid money. You scheduled time off for KMA to go
On
I
a
did.
Saturday.
baby boot camp.
I did.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's true.
Just because no other fathers
Did you get
were dumb enough to show up,
Did you get a
and you were
refund?
there and they canceled it, don't act like you didn't do it.
Did you get a refund?
Yeah, and they sent me the textbook anyway.
Oh,
They sent me
Wait,
two of them,
wait,
actually.
Hold
It
on.
was 2 pages long.
No way, it's like 150 pages.
Did you actually read them?
Sure you did.
Is my wife listening? Yes. Yes, I read them.
Okay, and your wife's not listening.
Probably not.
Thank you. Thank you. Score one for the brewmeister.
Why are my personal details so enthralling
Because
to you?
as odd as you
Yeah.
find his single life, I find your married
Abe,
life just as odd.
Abe and I have 8 children between us, and we've never gone through any of this stuff. Is what I'm saying.
Yeah, but I think there's
No.
Cooper, how many diapers have you changed in your fatherhood?
A lot.
Oh, okay.
And no one taught me how to do it. It was just instinct.
Exactly.
How many diapers have you changed, Abe?
Between the 4 kids, maybe 4.
Exactly. I changed 4 or 5 diapers a day.
Okay, just so you know, I wasn't home 120 hours a week, dude.
Neither am I.
Bullshit.
I work at least 60 hours a week.
Dude, I didn't go home and go to bed 2 or 3 nights a week when I was building my shops. Are you nuts?
I'm not judging you. I'm just saying
No, I'm
it's
just
a
saying-
different. It's a different situation.
I'm just saying it's not like, oh, the baby poop here. I just wasn't there. There were times when my wife was sleeping or wasn't available. I changed when those.
See, I
opportunities
feel
came
like
up, I
maybe
changed
you
them.
were there, and your mother-in-law was there, your sister-in-law was there, somebody was there to do it,
I mean, look,
which is nice. I'm not bashing you. I wish I had
If
that.
that's what naturally happened, it happened. But it wouldn't be like. My wife was in bed sleeping and the baby needed
And you woke her
changing.
up.
Yeah, I hung the baby over her head and said, wake up, baby needs changing.
There's a duty.
Yeah. But it just happened. But, I mean, I just didn't change a lot of diapers. I didn't need to read a manual to do it.
All right. Well, I mean, I didn't.
I can tell you on the
technically-
Pampers box how to do it.
I'm pretty sure there is a warning label on how to properly do that and how probably not to do that.
There's a lot of warning labels on kids' things today. Everybody's covering their ass. They're like, don't put the diaper over the baby's head and suffocate it to death. I'm like, really? You have to tell people
I
this?
really believe
Pretty
that.
much.
Yeah. Super Bowl.
Yeah.
What'd you
Good
think?
game.
Great game.
Yeah.
Great game.
Were you happy with the outcome?
Yeah, I mean, I've always liked Andy Reid. And
Who doesn't?
Yeah, who doesn't, right?
Really, if you don't like
Very
Andy Reid, you
likable
got a
guy.
problem.
Yeah, I mean, I lived in the Philly. I wasn't an Eagles fan, but I lived in the Philly area, and it was good to see him win. I thought, it was. There were 2 teams that were very likable this year. There wasn't like the hated team in there,
Right.
like the Patriots. And that, yeah.
But it was good to see the most winningest coach in the NFL finally win a Super Bowl.
Absolutely,
Well,
absolutely.
the most
And
winningest
50
coach without a Super Bowl.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what that statement kind of is.
Right.
Yeah.
And 50 years, too, without a championship. So good for
Exactly.
Kansas
Yeah, they won
City.
Super Bowl 4, I think it was,
Yeah.
literally. So it was exactly 50 years.
Yeah.
Good for Kansas City.
Good. Yep, I thought it was a good game.
Shakira or J-Lo?
I'm still going J-Lo.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Oh, so did
I'm
he?
actually-
We had this argument yesterday.
We had this argument yesterday, but so far Paul can't find anybody to side with him.
Juan
Juan who? Which one?
can't ship.
Well, literally, Juan who?
Yeah, right, Juan who?
Juan
Did you
who?
see that episode?
Yeah.
Who was that said that?
What, it was on some show?
It was
That was
here.
Lou.
Yeah,
It was
yeah.
Lou.
Oh, it was Lou
Juan
Rothman. You were talking about Juan,
Juan
and he's like,
Cancel.
Juan
Juan
who?
who?
All he was doing was posting these GIF files of Shakira.
Yeah, I saw.
Yeah.
Juan,
She looks good, man.
Juan on Facebook has complete dialogues with himself.
Oh, he does.
Like, he'll start a statement, then answer it, and
Yeah.
ask something about it, and,
Yeah.
and there'll be 10 posts in a row where no one's interacted with him, but he's had a whole conversation with
Yeah,
him.
when you're commenting on your own comments, there's a problem.
Pretty much.
Good times. Our just so you know, I don't know if you know what this light means. Our special guest is also on the
Yeah,
phone.
good, because I don't want to take long. I'm actually excited to have Arthur Zaretsky, Famous Cigars, here.
Famous Smoke.
Famous Smoke. I know a lot of people in the industry. I've been in the industry a long time, but Arthur is one of these guys I really never had the opportunity to sit and meet and get to know personally.
Have you met him in person before, like in passing?
I think we were in a room once down at Padron when we were raising money for Kendrick Meeks. I think that was during the whole S-chip debacle. And I'm pretty sure we probably have crossed paths here and there, but never. I don't have the relationship like I've been friends with Lou for a long time.
Right.
So when he posted that he listened to the show and liked it a lot, I'm like, oh, love to have him on.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to it because I have both his letters that he's written to the industry, and want to
chat about those.
Dig a little bit deeper into them. So it's kind of pretty cool to have him on for the first time guest on KMA Talk Radio.
Yeah. So should we bring him in?
Yeah.
Let's now please welcome Arthur Zaretsky of Famous Smoke Shop. Arthur, welcome to KMA Talk Radio, and thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So, Arthur, a lot of people might not know, but your parents started Famous Smoke Shop in New York City in 1939. Now, just to give a little background, what made your parents want to go into the cigar business?
Well, back then, it wasn't really a cigar business. It was more like a candy store business, and cigars was just part of it. And a lot of Jewish people in New York City went into the candy store business because it was stable. Cigarettes was stable. People needed sodas. They needed drinks. They needed a daily newspaper. It's just kind of like later on, the Koreans came to New York and started doing salad bars because people needed to eat. It was a stable, profitable business, and that's why they went into it.
And they had a good location, right, Arthur? They were on Broadway?
That wasn't the first location.
Oh, okay.
The first location that I know about was in Upper Manhattan in Washington Heights.
Okay.
It was on 181st Street in St. Nicholas Avenue, though my father goes back in the cigar business or cigarette business way before that. He had a store near 125th Street. Actually, it was like 5 blocks away from Lou Rothman's father's store. So the rivalry started before I was born.
I'm just curious because I really don't know the answer. Do you and Lou have a relationship? Have you guys, or is
we have a relationship like the Israelis and the Arabs.
Oh wow! Okay, good to know.
Yeah.
So it's a real Hatfields and McCoy story.
Yes.
Wow.
I mean, we were 5 blocks apart in New York City, where when I got into the business, in a 350 square foot store.
Wow. When you got in the business, was it still kind of the convenience or 10-cent store, or was it more of was it developing into what the traditional cigar shop eventually became?
Well, it was way before there was a traditional cigar store. I mean, the only traditional cigar store around, I would say at that time, was Nat Sherman, and he was like 2 blocks away from where I was. But his clientele and my clientele were boats passing in the night. There was no such concept as a premium cigar. I think the most expensive cigar back then was about $1 retail, which meant about 75% selling price, 75 cent selling price. It was a Macanudo. The first premium cigar ever to come out was the Pleiades, and that was $3 a cigar, and everybody thought they're crazy. I still have a scrapbook that shows what prices were in the 70s when we were advertising in the Wall Street Journal and various magazines, and we were selling a box of Macanudo Rothschilds for like $18.75 a box.
Now, it says here in 1970 you published your first mail order catalog, and that's, I think, approximately the time when you started working.
No, 1972.
1972. Wow, the year I was born.
Wow.
And you started.
Yeah, we published that. There was a typewriter called the IBM Selectric Composer.
You remember this
You probably don't know what that is, but it was a typewriter with a ball, and it actually produced a non-typewriter type font. It looked like printing, and that was the first 4-page black and white, basically a price list that we came out with in 1972.
So I have to ask, Arthur, what compelled you guys to start a catalog in 1972? What brought...
Was that your idea specifically? Because
or-
you had just started, I think, a couple years before that, started working in the family
Yeah,
business.
what said, like, hey,
Well,
let's get a catalog going?
It was an interesting story how I got started with the catalog business. We had an architect who did a lot of work in cigar stores. His name was Jack Perlman, and he was a very formal guy, and I was a very informal street kid from the Bronx, and I never gave him proper respect. And one day he came into my store, and we were engaged in a conversation, and he said to me, "Do you see what your competition is doing up the street?" Well, that was Lou, 5 blocks away. And he said, "But you're too stupid to do that." And that was like, that night I ran down to Barnes & Noble, which was on 18th Street, and I started buying books on mail order. And I said, I got to do this. A, because my competition is doing it, and B, because he called me stupid. So that was the beginning, and the book that I started with was by a guy named Julian Simon, how to start and operate a mail order business. And in the beginning, I had no idea how to do this, and I just had to learn little by little, and began collecting names when customers would say to me, "I'm moving to Florida, I'm retiring," and I would give me your name and address, and I just put them on Cheshire cards, and that's how it got started.
Just per chance, I don't know if you know the answer. Can you remember early on, basically, how many of these catalogs you guys were sending out?
In the beginning, maybe 2,000 catalogs, 3,000 catalogs.
And I don't know if you want to say, but roughly, where is Famous Smoke today as far as shipping out catalogs?
Well, I don't want to give exact numbers, but the catalog business has morphed into a very different business than it was, and we have found that the catalog itself is no longer as an important a vehicle for the customer as it was when we started.
Well, that was my other question. I'm sure at some point with the web, but at a peak time, what do you think any one of these major guys, whether it's cigars or not, what kind of numbers of you think volume of they're sending out of a catalog? Are we at 500,000, hundreds of thousands?
If you're talking about, let's say, Cigars International, I would say, if you're talking annual, I would say in the millions.
Compared to a couple thousand. I mean, that's
and I mean, each of us, that do still send out catalogs, which is myself, Holtz, occasionally Best Cigar Prices, JR and CI. We all have to do strict mathematical analysis to see how well the catalogs are paying off, and it's kind of hard to exactly know what a catalog is producing, whereas before the internet, which we started in 1997, it was what I called a closed loop system. Basically, we sent out an advertisement or a catalog, and somebody would raise their hand and say, I got your catalog, or I saw your ad, and we would know exactly what that particular medium or catalog was doing. As time went by, subsequent to 1997, it became more and more difficult to understand, is the customer that just placed an order responding to our catalog, or is it responding to our website or an email?
Or even walking through the door after reading something in your catalog.
Yeah, you can't always pinpoint the touches in this type of business.
Arthur, I have
Right.
to Arthur,
Yes.
I have to ask. So, what was the biggest lesson you learned early on when you started the catalog?
What was the biggest lesson?
Or the biggest mistake you made that you didn't realize that you had to correct?
Let me think about that one.
We could come back to it.
We'll come back.
I
you
mean,
think about
there
it.
was no major lesson or major mistake. It was actually very, very exciting. After working behind the counter day and night in the garment center, which was a very rough clientele, I more enjoyed the quiet of being able to write copy for the catalog and merchandise the catalog and realize that what Jack Perlman said was 100% true, in that if I lost my lease in New York City, I would still have the catalog business. And that's exactly what happened. I did lose my lease. So the whole catalog business was, a learning curve. It was fascinating. It was fun. I till this day, we still get mail orders. People send in checks.
Do they really still?
To this day.
That's funny.
And I still enjoy opening the mail and seeing names that have been buying from me, for 25, 30 years. I never got tired of hey, another check just came in the mail.
So, I mean, the train of thought I was working towards there is, in your opinion, is there still a need for the existence of a catalog today? Or do you feel it's just being done because no one wants to be the guy to stop doing their catalog?
Right, it's always been done.
Yeah.
It's a tradition.
I think it's a combination of both. I mean, we've done a lot of catalog testing, and we've reduced our circulation significantly by doing testing of various demographic groups and various groups that we know are buying only on the internet, and we've reduced our circulation dramatically with no decrease, in the sales for us. So, will the catalog go away someday? I think it may. I don't think the catalog has more than I'm going to say at the outside, a 10-year lifespan. The catalog has become more of a instrument of, hey, we're still here, a reminder, an informational type of magalog, rather than people going through the catalog
like a
and
supplement,
actually
a supplement
waiting
to
for
the website.
I mean, I used to be a catalog freak, and I was on 50 mailing lists, and my mailbox would be full, and I just enjoyed seeing what other people were doing. It was another way for me to get ideas, to learn about more innovative companies and what they were doing. Now I maybe get 2 or 3 catalogs that I still find interesting to get.
I didn't even know people
one
were
of-
still making catalogs outside of
Yeah,
the industry. I mean, some of the biggest ones are gone. Sears and
IKEA still does one.
IKEA still does a catalog.
I think Sharper Image, because now they're only online, they still do some kind of a catalog, but like
Sharper
once a
Image
year.
doesn't have retail stores anymore?
No, they've been closed for
Didn't
a couple
know
years
that.
now.
Yeah.
What?
I'm an audiophile, and I still get some audio catalogs like Music Direct and Audio Advisor,
Oh, wow.
and
I didn't know those
read
were still
them.
there.
Wow.
Yeah, they're still there, but audio stores are going away basically because of the internet as well. Even though they talk about the vinyl is coming back, it's not really coming back.
Right. Not enough to sustain retail shops.
It's funny because it just entered my thought talking about stuff that went away. How many times have any of you guys been in a Columbia House? Do you remember Columbia House?
Yeah, when I was a kid, my dad used to let me pick
I was
one a
just saying,
month.
how many times? How many times did you do it? I think I did like 2 or 3 times over
Well,
the
you
course
get a
of my
catalog for that too, and that catalog
Right,
will
well,
come.
and then you got the stamps.
The stamps that you take out.
And then
Yep.
it's all gone.
I have
Yep.
so one
Pretty
of
guide.
one of the things that makes Famous stand out in the business, I think, is the advertising and marketing end. And Arthur, you were quoted, and I want to give credit, and I can't remember, especially since I have somebody from the press here, but in one of the interviews that you gave, you were quoted as saying something to the effect of, and I'm paraphrasing, that Famous is really a marketing company that happens to sell cigars. Would you touch on that? At what point did you realize that your main goal was marketing?
Well, I mean, I was always interested in technology from the beginning. I remember the phone call and the day that I decided that we needed a website, and over time I just realized, like, we are a company that analyzes data. We process data. Of course, we have to do all the things for a customer to treat the customer correctly, to treat him with respect, to give him merchandise that they want and at prices that they can live with. All of, keeping inventory correctly. All those things need to be done, but we're really gathering demographic data on customers, and we could leverage that database and so do the same thing that we're doing now. Build another website for, let's say, CBD, and see if there's any crossover. In fact, we tried that a while back, about 2.5 years ago, with vape, and what we did find, we made a lot of mistakes. It was a totally new business. We entered a market where we were totally unknown, but we learned that there was very little crossover between the premium cigar smoker, which is primarily what our market is, and the vape customer.
Yeah,
There
it's
was
completely different
hardly
demographics.
any crossover.
Yeah, I would believe that. From a marketing standpoint, which is what I do for for my day job, I can see that.
You have a day job?
Yeah, I know, right?
Didn't know.
I have to.
Got to pay for a lot of diapers.
You gotta pay for a
Well,
lot.
but Famous is
education.
Famous is everywhere.
Wait,
Famous
listen.
is on the Stern Show. There,
Wait, listen, while I got Arthur on the phone, I just have to ask him. Excuse me, Dan,
Go ahead.
but in your day, Arthur, did you ever hear of a baby moon or a push gift?
Well,
He has small children.
I was listening intently to your discussion about that. So tomorrow, the answer is no. But tomorrow is my 72nd birthday.
It is.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
God
Yeah.
bless.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. So, you guys have no idea how rough the cigar business was in the 70s and the 80s, and how small the margins were, by and large. I mean, we were working, in many cases, on a 10% gross margin. So I was working 7 days a week. I mean, you touched upon that. I had to push off socializing, marriage, because I had to stabilize my business, and the competition was very rough, and I was just hanging in there, by tenacity alone. Tenacious D.
There you go.
I mean, I wasn't making any money. I was working over 120 hours a week and earning $125
Wow.
take-home pay. It was cash. It was all cash. I think I passed the statute of limitation at this point.
We won't tell your accountant, I promise.
But that's also because I was in the same boat.
So I put off marriage and children. Basically, I didn't think I was going to have any. And then in 2003, I was diagnosed with prostate cancer. And that kind of turned my life around in a whole bunch of ways. And I said, if I survive this, I want to have kids. And I didn't have my first child until 6.5 years ago. So I have a 6.5-year-old and I have a 16-month-old.
Wow.
And my goal is to live to 100, to be around, to stay healthy and lucid until I could ship them off to college and be a good father.
Well, it sounds like you're off to a great start, my friend. That's awesome. That's awesome. So I want to start diving a little bit into, in a month of everybody writing letters to the industry, including myself, right? Everybody's opinions came out last month. I want to start diving into your first letter, which was the announcing of your withdrawal from the trade show. And just, what was your thought behind needing to... I haven't gone to the trade show many years. What was your thought about posting the letter? Was it because you wanted it to be clear that it wasn't because there was already a movement of withdrawing out, or what was the reasoning for the letter to the industry?
No, so it was, my letter had nothing to do with what those other 4 or 5 companies, I didn't even know that they were going to do that. In fact, the day that I called Charlie Minato and said, why haven't you published my letter? He said, have you seen my website? 4 companies are pulling out. And I said, no, I haven't been on the website. And then subsequent to that, he published part of what I wrote.
So
my motivation was basically what happened in Maryland, and I formed a group of companies to respond to the excise tax issue in Maryland. And in the beginning, we didn't know exactly what happened, just that the CAA lobbyists dropped the ball, didn't tell us about it until after it was done. And the language that was put into that bill was added on like the night before it became law, it passed. And the original bill was a marketplace vendor bill, and it had nothing to do with excise tax. It was basically if you're selling merchandise for on your website and another person is shipping it, then you have to collect sales tax. I had no problem with the original bill. We don't do any of that. As we dug into it, and we hired a lobbyist, we we found out that somehow the PCA lobbyist, who was a new lobbyist, was involved in this excise tax issue. We didn't know exactly how. I reached out to Paul Spence, who didn't return my phone calls or my emails.
Paul Spence is...
Paul Spence worked for Partner in Civil Cigar Lounge in Maryland.
John Anderson's shop?
John Anderson.
Okay, all right. I didn't know. Okay, there you go.
Paul Spence used to be my CAO salesman.
Well, there you go.
So I figured he would give me the respect of like what's going on here, but he did not. And then I spoke with Christian Iroa, and Christian said, well, it's really Feeney Helmuth who runs things for the whatever the group's name is in Maryland. So I reached out to her. She did return my call. We had a nice conversation. She said she had nothing, that their group had nothing to do with what happened with the excise tax in Maryland. That's all I had to go on. My belief is what happened in Maryland is that the Maryland cigar retailers tried to get a reduction in the excise tax, and the legislator said that's a non-starter, not going to happen. How about if I do this? And this happened very late at night. And while they didn't, and again, this is supposition, I don't know, because the PCA hasn't come forward, John Anderson hasn't come forward, and they've said things that what I have said is not true, but they haven't come forward and come clean on the deep state, let's say.
Well, I mean,
what actually happened there, and I would really like to know what exactly happened there. But my belief is that the legislature said, how about this? How about we put a tax on remote sellers because we're not going to reduce the tax? And they said, we're okay with that. And that's what I believe late at night, the day before it became law, happened.
Now, we have William Cooper in the studio from The Scoop with Coop, who obviously does a lot of news and what's going on. Do you have a story of what the take is on that situation?
No, I was actually listening intently to what Arthur was saying because there hasn't been a lot of information that's come out on
And that's
this.
always kind of been your complaint about the PCA, is about getting the information
Getting
out.
information, yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's the first time I've kind of heard this in more detail on that. That's why I was kind of listening intently on that.
Well, here's the thing, because I know Feeney Helmuth. She was actually a former president of the IPCPR at the time, and I was actually on the board at the same time with Feeney and John Anderson, right? And, you made a comment in your letter for the 50 years that no one from the trade organization has ever returned the support or taken the time to understand your business and your segment of the industry because, according to the PCA, the internet retailers are the enemy. And what I can say, as someone who sat on the board and served in this, that this has been the absolute mentality of not just the PCA or the IPCPR or whatever you want to call it, because I've sat on a board and heard these discussions of this, my favorite quote of leveling the playing field. I mean, it's about as socialist as you can get, right? But I've been on the board and I've heard these comments, and I've sat on other boards, not so much of the PCA, and with other retailers, and when they would discuss guys like Arthur and Lou, because a guy like me, who basically started with 900 square foot store, right? These were guys I've always admired. I like my friendship. No offense to you, Arthur. I've always admired and loved my friendship with Lou because a guy like that, I could learn every little minute of every conversation I've ever had with him, right? These aren't guys that I never felt like were the enemy because it's a capitalistic country. I don't care what trade you're in. right? There's always the outlet mall. There's always the Home Depot. There's always whatever. You have to pivot and figure out how to evolve and survive. But that's never been the mentality of a lot of these retailers, right? They don't say, what can I provide that these mail order guys
How can I bring these guys down?
Because they're different consumers.
Yeah.
I will never, ever, ever, as a consumer, order from a mail order catalog. Just mail order catalog. I would never kind of really, if I had a good place to go, like one of my own shops, order online unless I really didn't have a place that provided me what I needed. You know, if you're doing a good job, right? Because not everybody is so price oriented, and today more than ever. And we're going to discuss this later because I think you bring it up, Arthur, in your second letter. Some of these prices are controlled, and you know, you're not saving money by going online. So then what do? Well, you have to provide them an experience. And I think that's why the evolution of now the bigger cigar shops with bars and more of a social settings now become. But just like any industry, Kodak or whatever it is, if you want to stay stagnant and think the world's not going to change around you, you know, you're going to die.
I don't understand why the cigar industry has taken this internet is evil approach when other industries haven't and thrived on it. I've just never understood it. I mean, you just nailed it. In the end, it should come down to the customer service and the product you're bringing to the table. You shouldn't have to worry about that.
You know, listen.
I think it's because, with all respect to brick and mortar retail, which I still am a brick and mortar retailer, and I started out as a brick and mortar retailer, as I said, in a 350 square foot store with my mom and my uncle. They're not innovative, and they just sit behind the counter and they wait for, you know, the register to ring instead of being proactive. And the term that often we use in discussion about a lot of brick and mortar retailers is that they're just hobbyists.
If I may, Arthur, they don't have a architect friend coming in and telling them they're stupid.
It's probably a valid point.
They don't have that. They don't have that kind of motivation.
Well, listen to me. Here's the bigger problem that has a little merit of truth. What you said, right? Most of these guys, if someone had come in and said, "If you know, this is why you're stupid," they get fired.
Yes.
They don't go out and buy a bunch of books and say, "Hey, let me do this."
Yes.
So that mentality is part of the problem. You know, they want to blame everything but what the real problem is and why they're losing business, right? I mean, I always believe that if you look hard enough, there's a solution. You just got to find it. You know, it's not always going to be easy.
And sometimes you have to shake things up. It doesn't sound like, you know, everybody's willing to shake things up.
Look, at the end of the day, there are different types of consumers, and you have to know who your consumer is.
Right.
There are the consumers, which, no offense to you, Arthur, that the CIs will cater to, because those are the guys who really aren't that selective of what they're smoking, you know, what brand. They're looking to buy something on the low and smoke it too. Yeah. You know, and look, I mean.
Well, I mean, we as internet companies fill that gap. I don't turn my nose up at people that smoke El Producto, and I don't turn my nose up at people that buy $3 and $4 cigars, which is probably, you know, the bulk of of our business in that category, because the retailers are not interested, by and large. I don't want to brand every single retailer. I have relationships with guys like Dave Garofalo. We have a great relationship. He doesn't have anything against me because he does his own thing. But the average retailer is like, if the cigar is not $10, I'm not interested in selling it. And they mark up. By and large, again, they mark up everything, you know, and they take the excise tax, which in my next document, which is coming out probably next week, I go into the fact how retailers will take a 15% excise tax on a $100 box of cigars, and now the box of cigars is a $230 retail instead of a $200 retail, with a $15 excise tax attached to it. So they just double the excise tax. And, the consumers don't know about this. It's hidden. In our case, because we're on the internet, we're going to have to show what the calculation of the excise tax is, because if it's not going to a state if it's going to a state where there's no excise tax, then we don't have to fill in that box. So,
in defense of that, hold on, Arthur, because I have both. I have brick and mortars, and we have a online web presence as well. I think part of that got convoluted because the majority, when I say the majority, I think it's really almost all of them, except maybe a few. When that excise tax was passed, they incorporated it into their selling price. So, you got to remember, most of these retailers, aren't like, rocket scientists. So when they were buying a box for $100 on invoice and they were putting the regular MSRP at $200 minus whatever discount they give for the box, that box started coming in at $125. Most of these invoices didn't even show that it was an excise tax. It just showed as a new wholesale cost for the box. They listed on their price sheet as this is your new wholesale cost for the box because the manufacturers just incorporated it as part of a cost. So when the retailers got invoices, they just followed the normal protocol of how to mark up their cost of goods. So I think bad precedent was set by the manufacturers from day one, because this is a complaint Lou has had for a long time. I sat with him. I heard him.
Yeah. Well, not everybody.
Complaint.
I mean, General Cigar didn't.
It's only about two or three of them. It's only about two or three of them that I know out of everybody.
But I lived through this in New York State, where there was Governor Cuomo put an excise tax on about 1992, so a long time ago, of 15% on the cost price. And we had to pay the excise tax on the purchase of the cigars rather than when we sold the cigars. So if we would buy, $500,000 worth of cigars, we would owe 15% tax on that by the 20th of the following month. And again, since we were in the catalog business at that point, so what did we have to do? We couldn't change all our prices because the bulk of our shipments were going out of New York State, not being sold in New York State. So we came up with a line item and said, okay, we're going to charge the customer, 12% of the selling price of the cigars, and then add the sales tax on top of that.
But unless I'm mistaken, cigars that you shipped out of state, you were credited the excise tax, weren't you?
Yeah, but we still had to pay it when we bought it.
You had to pay it when you bought it, but you got the cigars you shipped out of state, you got excise tax, and that state tax is still different from the custom the
federal tax.
Yeah, the federal tax of coming into the country, which is incurred by the
four and a quarter cents for most of the time that I've been in this business.
Yes. As Chip
which is basically $1 a box.
And as Chip changed that, but that tax was taxed to the manufacturers when they import it into the country, and then those manufacturers.
Well, we were a direct importer in a lot of cases where we had to calculate the pricing because it was separate. We were a direct account of Fuente, going back to 1983. So he would just ship the cigars. FOB, like an 8.5 by 52 cigar was like $600 a cigar. And so we would import it at $600, and then we'd pay 4 1/4 cents a cigar. So we'd be paying 65 cents a cigar plus with the shipping charge. So it was separate. But that was the only excise tax that we had to calculate, and if we wanted, we could just say, we're just going to absorb it, or we're going to keep it as a separate accounting line item, and see what happens at the end of the year. So in New York State, we had to create a separate line item for the excise tax. We didn't want the customer to know if a guy was buying a box of cigars for $100 that cost $25. We didn't want him to know that it cost $25. So we calculated it on the selling price.
Arthur, kind of going back to the first letter there, one thing I think that was a bit controversial in that letter was the comments you made on Marvin Shankin.
I wanted to bring that up too. I thought,
why include that in that letter? Because it almost seemed like, I mean, look, I have my issues too
one
there.
thrown over the bow.
Right, but it almost seemed like you had an axe to grind and then you went on to this other thing. What was the reason for that?
I dislike Marvin Shankin, though I recognize I recognize the value that he brought to the industry. My dislike with him is personal. I approached Marvin Shankin about the time that, if you remember, Lou came out with a magazine called Cigar.
Yes.
Yep.
So I hadn't talked to Marvin Shankin since the beginning of his that meeting that we had, that lunch that he invited me to basically
Give him your
rape
list.
me.
Yeah.
You know. So I went over to Marvin and I said, we have something in common now. You hate Lou and I hate Lou. So let's work together, and I'll promote your magazine.
Wow.
And we did. And it was about that time. So this is about 2002, 2001. And I said, Marvin, you do a prostate cancer dinner every year. I have prostate cancer. Can you help me? Can you hook me up with somebody? I'm about at the point that I need to go in for surgery. No problem, Arthur. Just call me when I get back to New York. This was at the trade show. And I called him. And then I called him again.
Oh.
And then I called him again. And I said, he doesn't care. This is all for show with this prostate, because here he knows somebody that has it, and he's not even willing to. I'm not asking him for money.
Right, just a
Just
contact.
asking him for a reference.
Wow.
So I called up Laura Zandy, who was managing the circulation and the promotion that we were doing, where we were giving away a free subscription to Cigar Aficionado, which he didn't give us for free, by the way.
Of course not. Of course not. He gave it to you at a reduced cost, I'm sure.
A reduced cost, right.
Which Lou said he did for him, too, at some point.
So I said, Laura, I'm out of this program. I'm not sending you any more names, She said, why? I said, because your boss is an asshole. And he treats me like shit. And do you have the same experience with him? And she said, yes, he treats everybody like that.
Wow.
So that was the end of the promotion relationship.
Yeah.
And then I made one final call to Marvin Shankin, and I knew he wasn't going to answer the phone, which he didn't. And I said, Marvin, I just want you to know that you are a shit. And if you don't believe me, just ask the people that work for you.
Wow.
Oh, my God.
And
I love this guy.
And that was, I have nothing to lose with Marvin.
Right.
He can't do anything to me. I'm one of the few people in the industry that could say these things about Marvin Shankin, because he could write a negative article about my company, but that would be advertising for my company, which he won't do.
No.
He would never let us advertise in his magazine.
Wow.
Wow.
Which there were a couple of other magazines out there before Cigar Aficionado, which you probably don't know about.
Smoke, was that one of them?
Well, it was one that Luke came out with the guy that did Screw Magazine.
Oh, yeah, Harvey Weinstein.
Not Harvey Weinstein.
No, not Harvey Weinstein, but it's Weinstein. It's hold on. Because he was good
Al
friends with
Goldstein.
Al Goldstein.
Yeah.
Wow.
Al Goldstein actually worked for Lou.
I knew it was a Steve.
I thought we were going dark there for a minute.
Yeah, I was.
Well, my mentor Sal Fontana he was actually good friends with Al Goldstein. He had a place here in Fort Lauderdale with a giant statue of a hand on the intercoastal giving all the boats the finger. True story.
The HOA allowed that?
True story. I don't know if there's an HOA when you got a house that big. I don't know. But yeah, true story. But yeah, Al Goldstein. That's right. They did have some kind of magazine.
Yeah.
I remember that.
Yeah, it was more like a newsletter than a magazine.
Yeah.
But there was another magazine that came out. It was a young kid in New Jersey. It was just called Cigar, and his name was Jody, and I don't remember his last name. And it was published by a company called Hayworth Publishing Company, and it was a legitimate magazine that came out about 4 or 5 times, and then it died. So these guys were way ahead of their time. But I mean, Marvin Shankin coalesced something that I think nobody within the industry recognized at that particular time, which was, like 1991, and the first issue was August 92. There was nobody advertising. The only people that were advertising were Thompson, JR, myself, and a couple other mail order companies, and very, very little advertising expenditure by the manufacturers. Questere did some small amount of advertising. Consolidated Cigar, before it became Altadis, did some small amount of advertising. But basically, there was no money spent on print media or any kind of promotions. There were no cigar events. I mean, it was a whole different ball game.
It was a different era.
Right.
It was a completely different era.
The pricing on a cigar was completely different. I mean, the margins were different, and it didn't allow. I mean, from 1970, when I came into the business, to 1992, when the cigar boom started, imports did not really change in 22 years. It was like 95 to 105 million cigars in total for that 22-year period. It never exceeded that. So the industry was not growing. Why did I stay in? Because I was like committed. I mean, like, I ain't working for anybody else. So this is it. Every time I worked for somebody else, I got fired. So
when you're knee deep in the mud, you just got to keep going. So listen,
it was like there was no choice. I mean, I was in it, and I said, "There's no turning back. And if I lose this, I probably will end up on the Bowery somewhere."
Well, if you're just joining us, we're speaking to Arthur Zaretsky of Famous Smoke. We're going to take a short break. After the break, we're going to come back and discuss his open letter number 2, an open letter to the cigar industry, the lie about internet cigar sellers. And I got some highlighted points that I'd like to elaborate with Arthur right after this break.
Arthur, stay there. We'll come right back.
We'll be right back after a short break. Keep it lit.
You're listening to KMA Talk Radio. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter.
We're on Instagram too.
Yes, it's mandatory.
Dan Blunt here for Alec Bradley Cigars. You ever plunk down hard-earned cash for a cigar? You're hoping you just bought yourself a nice drive-through taste town, only to discover you're in the slow lane with a clunker. That sucks. Say goodbye to bad rides. Test drive an Alec Bradley cigar today. At Alec Bradley, they get it. Whether we're talking about life or cigars, it's all about the ride.
Fuel your soul and experience inspiration with the Aging Room Quattro series by Rafael Nodal. More than just a master blender, but the inspired composer of 4 boutique masterpieces for the sophisticated palate of an aficionado. The Aging Room Quattro series are a perfect chord of flavor and aroma, and are born from the best tobaccos, aged under the expertise of one of the greatest names in cigar making. Truly the perfect notes for a genuine cigar smoking experience. Aging Room Quattro series, a quartet of excellence.
Hoya de Nicaragua proudly announces the release of Cuatro Cinco Reserva Especial, a carefully modified recipe containing a unique and exceptional selection of barrel-aged grade A fillers and a beautiful silky shade-grown Habano wrapper. From the legendary Jalapa Valley, produced in small quantities, this exceptional medium to full-bodied cigar will continue to captivate consumers with its rich Nicaraguan complexity, subtle woody and sweet flavors, and a velvety finish. Try a Cuatro Cinco Reserva Especial today.
CLE Cigar Company presents CLE Cigars, Aroa Cigars, and Asylum Cigars. With 4 generations and over 120 years of experience in tobacco. From seed to smoke, these cigars are produced in Honduras and Nicaragua, with the utmost care and precision possible. CLE Cigar Company introduces a vast array of tobaccos in various sizes to bring the highest quality of premium tobacco direct for your enjoyment. Visit clecigars.com for more information.
Since their humble beginnings in 1998, Drew Estate has believed that the production floor is the crossroads between art and passion, and where the real magic takes place. Drew Estate Master Blender Willie Herrera has crafted a unique medium-bodied line extension that is creamy, lush, and ultra-smooth, and finished off with a flawless shade wrapper that delivers satisfaction in spades. Continuing the story from their factory floor, it is with great bravado that the Drew Estate presents Under Crown Shade, a true Drew experience.
A Toscano cigar is the perfect combination of American and Italian craftsmanship. Made with American and Italian dark-fired cured tobacco, Toscano cigars are produced by hand by the cigar rollers of Lucca, Italy. Smoking a Toscano helps you escape from the real world for those few perfect minutes, like when you're sitting at home on a terrace after a long day's work, pondering life and how beautiful things are. A Toscano cigar can take you back through over 200 years of history and elegance. There's only one Toscano. Available worldwide, Toscano is now available at your local premium cigar retailer.
The Oliva family, the makers of some of the most affordable yet highest rated premium cigars available. For 7 straight years, Cigar Aficionado has rated Oliva as one of the best cigars of the year. And Oliva has a cigar for all smokers, from the newly released Gilberto Oliva Reserva to the bold and rich Oliva Serie V. Oliva cigars can be found at a tobacconist near you, so always ask for Oliva, an unbeatable value and uncompromising quality. The Oliva family of cigars.
Ventura Cigar Company is a boutique cigar brand born in sunny Southern California. Ventura Cigar Company is on a mission to create memorable, complex cigar blends that excite the senses and reward discriminating palates. Experience the Cigar Aficionado number 13 Cigar of the Year, the Archetype Axis Mundi. Rise up, step up, look up, fire up, and leave compromise behind with Ventura Cigar Company. Check them out online at venturacigar.com.
You're listening to KMA Talk Radio. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter.
We're on Instagram, too.
Yes, it's mandatory.
Experience the new Henry Clay Warhawk, a robust and complex cigar that's inspired by the rebellious roots of Henry Clay. The first of a 3-part series honoring the life of the great statesman, this cigar is made with the best tobaccos grown and hand-rolled by the Grupo de Maestros at La Flor de Copan in Honduras. And it's not your typical Connecticut. This is a Henry Clay. Stand up, be different, and smoke a Warhawk. Surgeon General warning, cigar smoking can cause cancer to the mouth and throat even if you do not inhale.
Hello, this is Glenn Case, owner of Christoph Cigars. There's nothing more important to me than family. That's why I treasure the moments with my wife Terry and our son Christopher, aka Christoph. When we have those rare moments to talk about life, there's nothing better than smoking Christoph to enhance our time together. For Terry, it's our Christoph Sweet Tip Cuban selection. For Chris, our Sumatra. And for me, our original Maduro. Enhance your family time with Christoph Cigars.
Welcome back. You're listening to KMA Talk Radio. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter.
We're on Instagram too.
Yes, it's mandatory.
Welcome back to KMA Talk Radio. We are here broadcasting live. I am Adam Gay, the Brewmeister. With me, as always, the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Honest Abe.
Good morning.
Paul, the producer.
Hey.
And our special guest sitting in, Mr. William Cooper, back in the state of Florida again.
A lot more quiet than I thought you'd be. I thought you'd be a little more vocal today.
I have been, there's a lot I learned from this in the last hour.
There's a lot you learn on KMA Radio. We're just not entertaining. We're educational.
No, but to hear Arthur tell his story has been, very interesting to hear that side of it.
By the way, I want to give props to all my patch people who sent me these awesome patches.
How many are there in total?
I don't know, but as you can see, I'm all patched up. We finally got them all on.
Wow.
Got some on the back.
Except you don't have that new dojo patch.
I know. Fools, right? I just finished patching my shirt, and literally the next day they release, we got a color now.
You can order it online.
He's got our address.
Right.
So we were talking to Arthur Zaretsky.
Go
ahead.
Famous Smoke Shop, yes, of Arthur. And Arthur, in the first hour, we were talking about your history in the industry, how you got in, the creating of your catalog company, and all that fun stuff, and a lot of great stories. And then we were talking about your first letter when you wrote out Famous Smoke Shop withdrawals from the 2020 PCA trade show. And you recently released a second letter that, Abe's got a lot of highlighted points he wants to talk about. So let's just dive right in.
Well, I mean, look,
there's a lot of good stuff in here, but, I mean, the one thing I want to talk about is the biggest thing you've mentioned, I think, that corresponds to the first and second letter is the fractures within the industry. Now, how do you think that all developed, and what is your, other than what you've already said?
I think the fractures have been around for a while. I think it's just coming to a point, but it'd be interesting to hear Arthur's perspective.
Yes.
Well, so going back to about 2003, Lou Rothman called a meeting at his place in Whippany, New Jersey, where about 30 people came.
Did you go?
I went. I did go. And it was basically a fundraiser that Lou had organized without calling it a fundraiser. So a lot of people were taken off guard.
What was he fundraising for?
Well, it was for legislative issues that we needed to become more proactive. But things hadn't really gotten to the point yet where people actually felt the pain. So a lot of people. I remember Dave Garofalo was there, and he was asked, for money, and he was like, "I have to talk with my partners because none of us came prepared to, fork over $5,000 or $10,000." And I don't remember if I actually contributed or not. I probably did, but maybe Lou would remember if I did or didn't. But that was like the first turning point in my mind. That Lou foresaw that there was going to be big problems down the road. Later on, I'm not exactly sure when the CRA was formed. I became very, very active with the CRA, and I raised a couple of $100,000 for them by basically working with the manufacturers and selling merchandise that we basically gave all the money to the CRA. And I was asked to be on the board, which I was on the board for a while, and then I began seeing that the people that were on the board there was a lot of disagreements about, acid cigars. They didn't want him as part of the premium cigar business when Marvin Samuel had fought so hard. It was also at the point that Jeff Borshowitz resigned.
Yep.
And then there was really nobody on the board that represented what Famous Smoke Shop did, which was internet, but also there was no machine-made, and we sell machine-made cigars, representation on the board either. And the final blow came when George Padron wrote a letter saying, this is our definition of a premium cigar, and if you don't like it, then, you can leave, or we're going to form our own organization. And, I wrote him back and said, we have a democratic process here. We have a voting process. You're making it a fiat organization with a threat, and I can't be part of this anymore. Between what they did to Marvin, I was there at the meeting where they basically exfoliated him, and the letter that George subsequently wrote, I said, I can't be part of this. They don't represent what I do, and some of the logic that they're using is just beyond belief. I remember Lido Gomez saying, we have truth on our side, so we have to win. And I'm like, yeah, that and 15 cents is going to get you on the subway. I parted ways with the CRA. So even within the premium cigar business, let alone the premium and the machine made, there was already fracturing. I was not one to go public about these things until now. I guess basically I am not a Facebook person or a social media person. I've always been, fairly private, but things just bubbled up to the point where I said, I think I have to speak, because somebody has to speak for what I do in the industry, and a lot of other people do in the industry, and almost every retailer has some form of, let's call it mail order or internet business, and if he doesn't, it's just a self-imposed rule that really doesn't make much sense. But to point out that we're doing something detrimental to the industry, I think is something that needed to be, brought to light, and that was why I wanted the industry to know my thoughts for the first time, which I've been sitting on for 30 years, being part of an organization that doesn't really do anything for me. I get the deals at the show, whether I come or don't go to the show, but I paid my dues. I brought my people. Gary Pesh asked me to donate $10,000 to the PCA. It was at that time the IPCPR, and I did that because I have respect for Gary, and I think Gary was on the board of directors of the CRA. I don't know if he still is.
No, he came off a long time. Yeah, I sat on the board with Gary.
Yeah, Arthur, you were talking about CRA and your split with them. I get the whole flavored thing, right? I know when they did the Marvin, I totally, it's been 4 years up there. But you mentioned the machine-made part, right? But wasn't the whole idea when CRA was established that it was meant to separate that from the very beginning, or am I wrong on that?
I can answer that question, I think, better than Arthur.
Okay.
Because I'll tell you why, and probably Arthur doesn't even know this. Very few people know this, but if you ask Jeff or some of the other guys, they'll tell you, I started the whole thing of the CRA, me personally. I remember getting on the phone with Marvin Samuel, Pete Johnson, Jeff Borshwitz, basically saying, look, here's our problem when we fight legislation. Us going down there as 1,500, retailers, no one cares. We need a consumer-driven base. We need to emulate the NRA, which is how I came up with the name CRA, which ended up getting used, right? Keith Parks was involved. There was some early meetings in one of the trade shows, I can't even remember which one, where it was me, Keith Parks, Marvin Samuel, Jeff Borshwitz, Pete Johnson, and a couple other key retailers about talking about a consumer-driven thing for cigars. It was never about what the cigars were going to be. We wanted the base of the people, because now if you really want to go and lobby and say, hey, I got an organization that represents 500,000 voters, right? It's a lot better than I got 1,500 retailers. The problem is, somewhere along the way, they couldn't figure out how. And listen, I support the CRA still, right, because I believe there's a need for these kind of things, and somebody's got to do some level of fighting. They're going to be at the Great Smoke, but the whole process of what I was trying to say we needed as an industry, a consumer-driven thing where we represented people, all with a commonality, got changed because the CRA should have been funded by the people. They couldn't get enough members to raise enough money, and then they had to start going to the manufacturers. So in essence, it became a manufacturer organization, yes, not a consumer organization. And that's when the differentiating of this, because initially it was just about a consumer organization. So, and if you're really making a consumer organization, and you could correct me if you feel I'm off on this, Arthur. You represent the consumers. Right. I mean, I came from the grocery store. Arthur talked about selling cigars. I've always sold $3 cigars in my retail store to $50, whatever the high price ones are, because that's what consumers are. If I'm going to service my consumers, that's what I need to provide. So, the second the existence of the CRA had to be funded by manufacturers to survive, the whole basis, in my opinion, of what it was supposed to be changed. And that's why I don't believe it has the potency that it could have had, right, or should have had they had 500,000 or 1 million members of the organization on a consumer level.
And now you know.
Well, I didn't know that story, because I came into the CRA realizing that the industry needed some voice, but that was after Jeff had left. I became friendly with Jeff at that point. I had some conversations with him, and I saw how hard this man was trying to bring unity. And when I got on the board, I tried to bring unity. I said, we don't go to Washington and say, look at Swisher's cigars. They're the problem. I said, that's not the right approach. Right. We need to stop that. But they didn't. I said, Swisher has a lot more money, and the machine-made industry has a lot more money, than we have, and to stick something in their eye, a nail in their eye, is not the best way. We need, if they're on the bottom berth of the Titanic and we're on the upper berth of the Titanic, we're still both on the Titanic. So we need commonality wherever we could work together, so that work out the differences between ourselves, and see where we could go. But that was not the mentality of a lot of the manufacturers. Was mostly manufacturers, but some retailers like Ari and some mail order companies and like Holtz on the board, but they had a different vision than I had, and a different way about doing things. And I said, I just don't fit here. So I resigned ultimately, and I felt the CRA was not dealing with the tax issues and the internet issues on a state level, because that wasn't that wasn't really their mission, and that the CAA would be a better fit for me, and I would have a better voice. And ultimately, I became a board member, which I am now, of the CAA.
And the CAA has always been a major organization in the industry that most consumers aren't familiar with, but there's a lot.
I'm not familiar with it.
There's a lot more mass market representation in the CAA. The CAA, and honestly, the IPCPR over the years have kind of had a irritable relationship because of these specific viewpoints, right? Now, I want to talk about a point that you made here about denying the positive impact of internet retailers like Famous Smoke Shop, because you have to respect the growth you brought to the cigar industry. Now, I've said for a long time ago, look, in any business, and pretty much in any life form, an organism, right, there's always a symbiotic relationship, a circle of life, right? These companies are much needed, and they're needed by manufacturers, too, because manufacturers, when they get stuck with 500 or 800 boxes of something they can't move, where's the outlet for that, right?
Right.
They don't want to 2 or 5 box them at a time to try to get them out the door on deals or whatever. So to have a company like Famous or CI who could buy lots and unload some of this and put some cash flow, especially for mid-level companies who are growing and cash flow is a continual issue.
This is a big deal.
It's a big outlet for their survival. So the existence of these types of businesses, I believe, is imperative to the survival of a lot of these companies, which in the end provides more of a variety to consumers. Where I did kind of question, because I'm a retailer and we have an e-commerce site, and you said I also do believe that manufacturers have the ability to control how they want to market their brand, because one of the issues you talked about is when they started passing minimum price standards. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think if you own a brand, you could set forth in how you do business. A manufacturer is concerned to say, well, if we did X, Y for you, what would the retailers say? I believe is a viable argument, because even in my brick and mortar stores, if I apparently treated 5 guys better than everybody else who walks through the door, guess what the other 250 guys, are going to say? So I think that is not necessarily bad from the industry, because look, one of the things, Arthur, and you may disagree with me completely on this, right? But the internet companies, as much good as they do for the industry, you have to understand that they've also been a vehicle of killing brands. There's been many brands that have found the graveyards because of catalog companies that have either bought too much and now are stuck too much. And what do? Now they just start blowing them out at a loss, using them as a loss leader. There's a viability to protecting a price point of a brand. If you look at a company like Mont Blanc, that at one point was an Office Depot and Office Max, because when I was growing up, somebody had a Mont Blanc pen. I was like, whoa, that guy's got a real elite pen in his pocket. Then they started putting it in, Office Depot, and look what happened to the brand. It became nothing. And if you look at how they've restructured, they've pulled out of all those kind of stores, and now they're opening up shishi, fufu, big, nice stores and malls and stuff, selling, $400 wallets and stuff.
You mean like Davidoff using paper bundles?
We used to be in the pen business.
Yeah.
We had a pen catalog. So Mont Blanc actually changed the name from Kohinoor USA to Mont Blanc USA, and then we had to reapply, and they said, you're not the right type of outlet for us. That we were doing over $1 million in pens.
So why do you feel?
But anyhow,
why do you feel it's a problem?
Let me address some of the things that you said, because there's a historical perspective as well. So for close on 100 years, the manufacturers had no legal right to tell a retailer what to sell the merchandise at. So the manufacturers would generally control that by in the cigar industry by we're out of stock, or I ordered 100 boxes and I only got 5 boxes, and the process of suing a manufacturer, which Lou did, by the way, And there's an interesting story about that with Lane Limited, which I was a part of.
That was Dunhill back in the day. They pretty much had the Dunhill line.
Yeah, Dunhill, Monte Cruz.
Yeah.
So they, even though there was no, legality to control prices, if a manufacturer could prove that there was malintent on the part of a retailer to hurt a brand, they could, stop selling, and then it would be go to court. Or if a manufacturer cut off a retailer, the retailer had recourse to sue the manufacturer, and a lot of these things were done, private conversations, handshake deals. Okay, I'm not going to do this anymore. We were a much smaller industry back then, and a lot of these issues were the manufacturer's own fault because they didn't know how to control their production, and they overproduced. And what would have happened at the end of 1999 when there were 200 million cigars that had no home?
Right.
And most of them were crappy cigars. And it took another couple of years for guys like Holtz and myself and Alex Goldman and probably JR and CI to push this junk through the system because the manufacturers were either going out of business or sitting on way too much inventory. So in that respect, we normalized the industry back to where it was about 300 million cigars. That would have taken a much longer period of time without the internet. So the internet, yes, I agree, could be a source of bad things happening to a brand. And the beginning 2007, there was a Supreme Court decision that changed everything for all selling across the board. So I thought that I was happy with the system that pre-existed that, where I could sell for whatever I wanted, but I knew if I did, there were consequences that I wouldn't get shipped, or I wouldn't get shipped what I needed, and I would have back orders and double shipments. So there was, there was that equilibrium that automatically the market existed in the market.
But I don't believe. I mean, when I read your letter, it almost seems like that was driven by the brick and mortars or whatever. But I don't think so. I mean, I think that the manufacturers, there were manufacturers who wanted.
What was driven?
The standardizing of a minimum MAP pricing, minimum advertised price.
That had nothing to do with the cigar industry. That was a case that occurred in Texas, in Houston, with the leather goods industry, a company named Ligon, and a small retailer named Kay's Closet.
I understand, but contracts had existed prior to that. Davidoff had always maintained a contracted price. They make you sign a contract. Because I remember early on in my career, we always didn't understand, because everybody would tell you, it's not legal. You can't do it. Davidoff had one. And there were a couple other companies or smaller ones that would start and make you sign a contract. And then there was the whole story of, the contracts aren't enforceable. I mean, Davidoff seemed to hold their enforcement pretty good for their white label brand. So,
it's probably because nobody challenged it, but it wasn't legal to do that. And what they did with me is we're not putting you on as an account. You know,
I
for like
understand.
the first 25 years I'm in the industry, they ain't selling me.
I understand, but the point I'm trying to make is that desire wasn't so much. It was also on the manufacturers. They wanted to be able to control how their product was branded and sold and not discounted and not cheapened, which I don't think is a bad thing. If I have a brand that I'm investing my money on and I want to create a perception of a value or what it is or a standard, I don't want people who I sell my product to try to change that standard, which I think is the argument here. So I personally don't have a problem with that happening.
I don't disagree with what you're saying. I'm just saying that from a legal point of view, it didn't happen until even if the manufacturers wanted it, legally it was not enforceable until 2007. And of course, the whole industry changed because of the cigar boom, and there were other issues like not being able to get supply. So when you can't get supply, it was, why sell it, at 10% above your cost? I remember having a conversation with an employee of mine way back when the brand Havana Gold was introduced, and it was a $5 cigar, which was a lot of money at that time. And he said, I want to take it in. And I said, nobody's going to buy a $5 cigar. And he said, and not only is it a $5 cigar, I want to sell it for $5. And I said, Jose, you're nuts. But okay, order 10 boxes, and let's see what happens. So he ordered 10 boxes, and within 3 days, the 10 boxes at 125, 50 minus 20, they were gone.
Yeah. It's Sal Fontana, one of my mentors, his two famous quotes were, he says it, he was saying it toward the end of his life there, his two best predictions in history were that the embargo would last a year, and that when the price of a cigar went over $1, it'd be the end of the cigar business. That was Sal's
Wow. Sal was, I knew Sal a long time, and he was he was a prince of a guy, and one of the few guys that was able to bring a brand back after it had died.
Yep.
Which was the Baccarat.
Yep.
He was also involved in a brand called Carl Upman. I don't know if you know
Absolutely.
that.
I got a picture of him holding an old Carl Upman box. Yeah.
So no, he was a great guy. Anyway, that was a turning point that for me, because for 22 years, I'm like, if I raise a cigar a nickel, I got people walking. I mean, you have to remember, in my universe, there was 20 cigar stores within an eight block area. I mean, so when you raised your price, I'm walking down the block.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't raise the prices yet, and I'm talking a nickel a cigar. I mean, Bering Plaza was $5 for $1, $9.95 for a box of 50, and it was an all tobacco, long filler cigar made in Tampa by the Corral family, and it was one of the biggest selling, and most of it was sold in Claro, but it was one of the biggest selling cigars that we had. I mean, there was no premium cigars at that point. Bering came out with a line called Spanish Colonial Style, which was actually handmade in Tampa. We carried it. It didn't do that well. And then about that time, cigars started coming in from Nicaragua at, $350 per thousand. So people said, for another 10 or 15 cents, I'm going to buy a handmade cigar. And that was the beginning of the end of the cigar manufacturing business in the United States.
Now, you brought up a point which I'm curious about, because you kind of hypothesize, should the big catalog manufacturers go away. You make a statement, the B&Ms won't pick up the slack if the internet retailers go away. Instead, fewer cigars will be purchased by the industry as a whole. I kind of question this a little bit, because back when, I don't know how long ago, maybe it was 5 or 6 years ago, Maryland had enacted some kind of law which was interpreted as no one could ship into Maryland anymore. So I remember, along with a lot of the big guys and myself, we stopped shipping to Maryland overnight. And it lasted about 3 months until somebody finally came up from the government and said, well, this is not how we meant the law to be. It's being interpreted wrong, and everybody started selling to Maryland. But if I remember correctly, the B&M businesses during that 3-month period went up some stratospherical number, like 28, 29% during those 3 months. Why do you feel if and I'm not saying it's good or bad for the industry, I'm just saying, to this statement alone, that consumption would go down? Is it because of the people in the rural hills of Montana who don't have a star? Or do you feel like the people coming into my store every day are going to start consuming less?
Well, I mean, there's definitely a correlation between the price of a cigar and how much of that product is consumed. I don't think you could argue with that. And when prices rise beyond a certain level and people start doing an analysis, how much money am I spending on this hobby, this pursuit? I can't afford it anymore. So I think that will the brick and mortar retailers by and large start selling $3 cigars to say, well, if you can't buy the $10 cigar, we got the $4 cigar. Maybe some retailers, of course, will.
I don't know how accurate you are in that statement in thinking a lot of brick and mortar stores don't sell $3 cigars or $4 cigars. I almost all you in particular, William, you travel the country going to almost every cigar shop.
Yeah.
How many of them do you go to who sell bundle cigars?
A lot. I mean, Quorum is one of the best-selling brands.
I don't know. I mean, look, here's what happened. It's a free market, right? So I think there's always going to be a $3 or $4 cigar. Now, what you're talking about, Arthur, I believe, is like, look, brands get affected. It's just like when there's a price increase, right? When there's a price increase, the manufacturers, I'll get calls from manufacturers, hey, who's raising prices? What do you think? Because that's never a problem for me as a retailer. Because, if there's a price increase, you know better than anybody, the value of my inventory just went up. So I'm all right. But as a consumer, they have to make a decision based on what you're saying. So if I smoke brand X and I'm a loyal brand X smoker and that cigar is a $6 cigar, right? And all of a sudden, tomorrow there's a price increase and that $6 cigar becomes $6.95. As a consumer, I don't quit. I don't stop smoking. Now, two things may happen. One is I may decide that I like the brand so much that I'm still going to buy it at $6.95. Now, I may try to convince myself that maybe I'll smoke a little bit less, but how often does that happen? So either I start spending more money, or guess what I do as a consumer? I find myself another $6 cigar that I'm going to enjoy and start relating. So I don't know if the price formula works as far as controlling consumption, because I believe there's always going to be somebody who's going to make a $3 cigar or a $3.50 cigar. They may switch brands. This manufacturer may sell less, but if this manufacturer is selling less, then I think what happens is this guy starts selling more. So I don't know if I agree with that whole overall scheme of consumption going down.
It works that way in the cigarette industry, but the cigarette industry is not totally analogous to the cigar industry, because there are so many different price points in the cigar industry. I guess the question is, would the average retailer say, I'm going to go after that market, and I'm only going to make $1.50 a cigar instead of making $5 a cigar? And my costs are the same, my labor costs are the same. They're probably going to try not to go that way unless there's no choice.
You know, I mean, look, here's the problem. I think the savvy retailers, which retailers would have to be more savvy, are going to realize that, look, you have to sell your margins. Your margin's your margin. So if you're selling $3 in a margin, because not everybody's a $10 cigar smoker. So you can't alienate the guys who are going to walk in your store and buying $3. See, I don't look at that as, oh my God, I could have made $5 on a cigar and only made $1.50. No, what I look at is the guy who wanted to buy a $10 cigar bought it, and a guy who wanted to buy a $3 cigar now find my store and bought that too. I look at it as ancillary to my business, not detrimental to my business. So, like I said, I think most retailers around the country sell bundles. I have met retailers who say we won't sell bundles, who believe in, you know, exactly what you're talking about. They don't want to sell less than a $10 cigar.
And they'll only sell certain products, certain brands, rather.
But those guys will get eaten alive by guys like me who will come and open up stores and say, hey, I'll sell everything.
Right.
You know, you want the frame off the wall? I'll sell it for $50.
I 100% agree. If the retailer has that mentality, then they're going to go the way of the dinosaur. I've always looked at it in whatever my customer wants. If I can make money on it, I'm taking it in.
It's a true story.
I don't look down upon people that are smoking El Producto or White Owls or machine-made cigars. I did look down for a while on acid because it was so like different.
Against the grain.
You know?
They were against the grain.
You know, it was like, who's going to smoke this shit? I didn't take it in for about 5 years. And we started getting so many calls for it. I said, okay, you know, where are we going to put it? It's going to stink up the rest of the cigars. We got to segregate it.
You could have probably invested and owned half the company early on.
So, you know, we finally took it in, and you know, it's a giant seller, and of course they're under threat right now because they would be under certain definitions. They are a flavored cigar. And flavored cigars are being banned in many localities, many states. So Swisher and Drew Estate, I think, are going to be facing some major challenges going forward.
Which I find odd, too, because they're also one of the people who really weren't supportive for a premium cigar exemption as well, which would have salvaged that part of their business.
Well, I mean, Drew Estate has always been in favor of, exemption for premium cigars.
Yeah, that was when they were Drew Estate. Now that Swisher's on, Swisher specifically does not want a premium cigar exemption, which is detrimental to their flavored or infused line. But, you know, I never try to understand politics because, you know, they banned flavored cigarettes. We've been smoking menthol cigarettes, or menthol cigarettes are still out all over the place.
Right.
That one got away with it. So who knows how these lobbyists work. But we're coming up to an end, Arthur. I really want to thank you for taking time out of your busy day. I know you had to take your daughter to a swim lesson, and you ended up taking time out to come and do our show today. I appreciate it. And hopefully as things progress...
I do have one more question just to close out. Yeah, sure. Arthur, in the closing of your letter, you did state, I do believe that anyone can say I have never broken my word. And if this isn't true, here's your chance. Has anyone come to you and said that you've broken your word?
No, I think my reputation in the cigar industry, you know, precedes me, and I've never had problems, well, not in recent years, with credit, and there have been a lot of manufacturers, small guys, like, let's say, Dion of Illusione, who said, "You're the devil." But now we do business with Dion, and
he loves you now. He loves you now.
He said, you know, you kept your word, you didn't break your word or your pricing on my product, and you know, I'm just sorry we didn't do business earlier because I listened to other people. But there's one final thing that I would like to say.
Yes, sir.
That really has me very, very angry. And it has to do and you're probably, Abe, in the same situation that I'm in. So if we break a price on a brand or a product, within 15 seconds we have, George on the line, or you know which George I mean, and he'll just stop shipping us. Now, that's not true for a lot of the smaller guys, because when I call the manufacturer and say, but look what they're doing, I don't sell them. So they've lost control over how many people are allowed to jaywalk. And many people, they don't really care because they're making sales. But Famous Smoke Shop and the larger retailers, we're at a disadvantage because as soon as we do it, we get a call. That's problem one. Problem two is there are certain people in this industry that are manufacturers and are also internet sellers.
Yeah, well, that's been going on for a long time. Yes.
And they have brands, and they say you can't discount my brand, but they break MAP pricing on everybody else's product.
Sometimes they break it on their own.
Not the person that I have in mind.
Okay.
Not that we're here to name names.
I've seen.
At this point, I'm not naming names, but maybe you could figure it out. But I'm writing a letter about this because it's really unfair. And I had a conversation with Dave Garofalo about this, and his approach was, I just don't do business with that company anymore, or those companies. And he says, Arthur, I have no problem with a company like you. I don't buy from you.
Yeah, right.
You don't buy from me.
Right.
You're not part of the problem. And I agree. I'm not part of the problem. I'm like the George Carlin, why I don't vote. Have you seen that one?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Can't be blamed.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, you who vote, you're part of the problem. I don't vote. I'm not part of the problem. You're putting into office the people who, suck. I'm not. So it's a major issue for me that I, in certain cases, feel compelled to buy from companies that are underselling me on everything else.
Well, I look forward to your next letter. I will be reading it. And I really want to thank you for coming on the show. And now that you're a fan of the show, hopefully down the road, as you write a few more letters, we could have you back on sometime to talk about it.
Okay. No, I listened to you, and I found your questions and your approach respectful, and that's why. And I have felt respected during this phone call and not attacked. So yes, I'd be glad to do it again, and I thank you for having me.
Absolutely, thank you for coming on.
Good job.
Have a great birthday tomorrow, my
Yeah,
friend.
happy birthday.
God
Happy
bless.
birthday,
Arthur.
Yeah.
God
Thank
bless.
you for coming on. Arthur Zaretsky of Famous Smoke Shop. Best of luck, sir. We look forward to reading his next letter. Coming up soon.
Coming up now.
Coming up now, or hopefully in the next week, so we'll see what happens.
Oh, the letter I thought you were going to do. I thought you were taking a break. It's not like you was taking a break.
I was going to. No, I was taking a break.
Bye-bye.
Oh, bye-bye.
Bye, Arthur. I thought you called and turned down the
Thank you, Arthur.
thing on that. You want to hit that, or you want to talk to Coop?
No, talk a little bit. Man.
Okay, we'll talk to Coop.
I got a feeling he was talking about Ashton.
Oh, he just came out and said it.
Did he say it at the end?
No, you did.
Yeah,
No, he
I'm
wasn't.
only guessing. I'm hypothesizing.
Well, you could connect the dots with that.
But I
That's it.
think they're pretty much like one of the of doing their own brands.
Oh, yeah.
Well, no, they do everybody else's brand. I think they may do it under maybe Ashton.
Yeah.
That's my guess.
That was my...
Yeah. So Coop seemed like it was a slow news cycle this week.
Well, there was
there
was actually some news that came out. There's a couple of stories that came out.
Was that the first time you've actually conversed with Arthur?
Yes, it has. And I went into that interview thinking a little differently. I understand some of the things he come out with that as well.
Listen,
now.
mate, just like anybody else.
Yeah.
It's really funny because I've now had a few in-depth conversations prior to this with Arthur, right?
Right.
And I've known Lou for years.
Right.
They're good guys.
They're good guys, yeah.
They're good guys. I mean, they're really good guys.
I thought a little when he did the letter, to be honest with you, he was grandstanding at the point when the Big Four, he timed that thing with the Big Four. But,
look,
there's the issues he explained there. I changed my...
It's one of those things, everybody has their own opinions, right? Is ultimately their, could the industry survive without them? Yeah. What will happen is there'll be a lot less manufacturers because guys won't have that outlet for the cash flow unless they become really innovative and figure out how to disperse product. But innovation is what makes people survive, right?
Yeah.
So, and I don't think consumption becomes necessarily less because consumers aren't going to buy less because there's no more internet catalogs. Now, what will happen is guys in Montana or South Dakota who are nowhere near a cigar shop, guess what a smart person then in that town does? But guess what happens then? Innovation says to somebody in the neighborhood, hey, I should open up a cigar shop out here. All my neighbors can't buy cigars anymore. And that's what happens. So, I don't know if I, kind of see it, but I think he's valid in these points.
I think he does too, yeah. And
everybody has their perspective on what is good for their business, and his business is our business. It's just a different model. I don't try to compete with JR and Thompson's and Famous, Cigars International, that whole, because I can't compete with them on that clientele. So I have to compete in other ways. I'm selective with brands that we sell most of that, hey, we can compete on price. And then I try to beat them all up on service.
Right.
I order regularly on a quarterly basis, sometimes maybe half a year if we forget, from all these guys. I like to track how long it takes the package to get to me, what it looks like when it gets here, what's in it when it gets here, so I can compete. And it's funny because one of them tends to usually be the worst. Statistically speaking.
Right, they've had their problems.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, one of the we kind of, I ain't gonna lie, we probably haven't done it in about a year. We're a little overwhelmed, but
got a lot going on.
One of the better ones was, believe it or not, JR. JR was very consistent and would always have stuff in the box packed very well.
Right. And coupons for other random stuff.
And who do you think statistically we found to be the worst?
I would say the biggest, CI.
Yeah, I mean, at some point, I don't know where they're the biggest, but yeah, CI was the worst.
Yeah. I mean, they had their issues.
They were just my first. It was really funny because when when Dogma was first released, right, we kind of had the lion's share because we were the first to work on it with the dojos, and then everybody else got a little bit. And then one of my staff guys says, "Hey, these guys got it up on site. How many did you get?" I said, "Dude, they're probably just fishing for emails." They got 50 bundles. I mean, they're going to get like 5,000 requests on it.
Right.
So I actually made
That's great lead gen.
It is great lead gen. Yeah. So I actually made my operations manager order a box just to see
how it is.
Did he get it?
Well, hold on. He asked them, when will the box be there? She goes, and this is the person answering the phone. I don't know. Should be in the next couple weeks. So could you imagine somebody calling my shop to place an order and not knowing, to tell them that I don't know? And then, because he did the order online, but I made him call to follow up because it didn't say when it was going to deliver, right? It says delivering soon. So then, literally, a month goes by.
Oh, no.
Never shows up. His card never got billed, right? And he calls, literally 4 to 5 weeks later, no, that cigar is currently on back order. He never got the product. True story.
Abe, kind of observing today, we've always, there's this notion internet is evil. But the guys you've had on, Lou Rothman, Craig Williamson, a few months ago. Yes. Now, Arthur, they've been some of the most interesting guests.
Oh yeah.
That I
agree.
And I found that really interesting out here in Arthur today. Join that club.
I'd love to go to lunch with him. And have lunch. I mean,
wow.
This was my first in-depth, 2-hour conversation.
He's got stories.
I mean, and he's very. As you heard with the Marvin comments, he.
Got all the more respect for him.
Exactly.
Right?
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I would never be that way.
No,
No.
not the.
Not Honest Abe, of course not.
So you were talking about you wanted to say something about the TPE, or
I have a couple things.
Yeah,
So can we talk about the "I was right, you were wrong"?
Oh boy.
Are you talking about the Tobacco 25?
Yeah.
That was never my argument.
Who called it?
I know,
Who
but
called it on this show?
how can I be wrong if I didn't say that it wasn't going to ever lead there?
Oh, you just went down a bad road.
I don't know why
Coop. You
people
just
refuse to listen to my argument. My argument is just being, if you're going to do it, be consistent.
Right.
You want 18, make 18. You want 21,
Right.
21. My opinion on the matter was, I think people at 21 are more mature level, and it's probably a better age for all those things, whether it be dying for your country, whether it be getting married, whether it be voting, or whatever. I never said that they're not going to push to 25. I never said that it should be 21 over 18. My point was, if you're going to pick a lane, pick it.
Now
you can't tell me I could die for my country, but I can't smoke a cigar. That's some bullshit.
Now what do you? Yeah, I mean, were you surprised it happened that quick? I was surprised that some state actually proposed it that quick.
They talked about it, I think, even before 18. Before they went to 21, there were talks about some states at 25.
Yeah.
I don't think it's new. It's just, news now.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I mean, if you want to say you were right, you were right. Though I never said it wouldn't go to 25.
Okay. We'll say that part.
Crazier stuff has been proposed in the legal systems.
Yeah, and there was another really. The legislative stuff I always find is not too interesting.
I meant to ask Arthur about the packaging law, and I forgot.
That was you want to say a win. That was a win for the cigar industry.
That was huge.
Because we never had anything struck from the regulations before.
Yeah.
And it was, look, you got to give, look.
Now, you would know better than me. Is it on appeal?
Yeah,
I'm going to assume they're going to appeal this.
I think here's the thing, and this is a question I have to ask. I still think they can regulate something with a warning label, but they have to go back to the drawing board.
Yeah, because how can you tell me this little warning on a pack of cigarettes is about yay big on the side of the pack?
They're not
is
gonna be
anywhere equivalent to what they're asking the cigar industry to do.
Yeah, they're not going to be able to do this 30% rotating thing is what basically...
Rotating, double side, front, top, inside, side box.
7 different labels.
How about all the cigar companies that invested money in changing this packaging now?
Yeah, everybody has like the changes in the boxes that have room for 30%.
I mean, a lot of those packaging changes we saw in the last few years were driven by this.
I know.
And so that's, yeah.
It'd be interesting. I wonder if there's a viable lawsuit there.
Yeah, exactly.
Who knows? Some lawyer will tell you.
Exactly.
I'm sure you can find a lawyer.
Big win for now. We'll see what happens. What else? Anything going on? Any other news or comments from the TPE? Or?
No, I mean, it was a pretty slow week as far as TPE's over. I think most people, we talked a little last week about it. I think people came out of that very positive on that. So that was, I think...
You think there'll be more of a presence of premium cigar people there next year?
Definitely.
Really?
There already have a lot of people signed up for next year.
Really?
That weren't signed up this year?
That weren't signed up this year, or you just mean re-signing of the
the re-signing, but they're going to... Look, they have a whole year now, and there's people who didn't go this year. I think they're saying, you know what, we're going to take a look at this thing next year now. Okay. I posed the question, what happens to TPE if PCA moves the show up in 2021 to, like...
Date?
I don't think they can. I think they're already locked into a date for next year.
At some point, but if they want to try, if they're going to consider this a competitive threat, at some point, like, they can move this up, and then people are going to be forced to choose between two shows.
Well, I think the premium cigar guys, if they're forced to choose between two shoes, are going to have to go to the premium cigar industry.
I think they're going to too.
I mean, look, strategically, there's no merger everywhere. That's, I think, the move that has to be done.
Yeah.
But I mean, how do you do that? You wait to register until the TPE. I mean, how do you align it that way on purpose? It's kind of hard.
Yeah, I do know there were board meetings with the PCA going on in DC this week. The board was in town, so I don't. But they don't tell us anything.
I did see there were a few guys, interesting guys, that were posting that they were lobbying this week too.
Yeah, and they did that. I guess there was a board meeting concurrently with that.
That's not a rumor, right?
That's fact. That's
okay.
fact.
I'm just making sure.
I know.
I thought I caught you.
The rumor would be if I told you I knew what was going on in that meeting, which I don't. which I don't. Yeah, but I do know there was. I don't know if but so. I can't imagine TPE not being a topic on the board of directors meeting with the PCA this week. Because there were board members out there.
They should be.
Yeah.
It definitely should be.
Yeah.
So where are you going from here?
I go back home, and then I'm back. I'm going to be back in Florida next week.
Oh, you're going 2 weeks.
2 weeks. Well, 2 weeks. I'm actually going to Pro Cigar.
Don't freak me
out.
No,
I'm going to Pro Cigar before then.
When do you work, dude? Between your eating extravaganzas and your traveling and your 8 shows a week on the radio.
Most of his travel has been outside the cigar industry. I've been doing.
Okay.
So the Denver trip, the Minnesota trip, and this trip I had other business going on.
Good for you.
Yeah. Thank you.
You would almost think so, as much as he talks about food, right?
I did buy my ticket to the Red Meat Lovers Club dinner.
Did you go last year?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
And I forgot to do it. I'm like, I better buy this now.
It's gonna be off the chain.
I
this
have
year.
news.
Yeah.
We're gonna have a sampling of the food for the Red Meat Lovers Club cigar.
Is that next
dinner
weekend?
Next weekend.
Oh,
Evan is coming in.
Oh man!
And we can finally announce that Pete Johnson will be in studio as well with Evan.
That's a miracle right there.
You didn't tell me that. We were talking about this outside. You didn't mention that part to me.
What'd you think? He was calling in?
I think Pete Johnson's been. He's never been in this building, but he's been in the studio.
He's been in the studio, yeah.
Before
once,
me,
yeah,
and then other times he has called in when I've been
Well,
here.
he's also been in the store when we did it live from the store.
You know
a
what?
few times.
I'm going to bring a bottle of wine.
Oh.
Is he a wine drinker?
Oh.
Are you kidding me?
What?
Really, Paul?
Yeah,
Thank
he
you.
has a
Tell
wine.
him.
He has a wine.
He has his own wine.
all right.
In fact, I didn't get mine for Christmas.
Let me tell you, the wine we had.
Usually he sends me a nice.
Yeah, I tell you, the wine is good.
You know what?
I've never had it.
You know what? I shouldn't say that because he may have.
You don't know.
No. It gets delivered to me. I bring it home because my wife looks forward to it every year. I have to
Oh,
ask.
really?
Yeah. I have to ask her this year because I've been a little clutter-brained
just
lately.
No, you?
But yeah, I've been a little clutter-brained lately. So before I shouldn't say that, because he may have done it. So I have to ask. My wife would know because she'd remember drinking it.
Can we, before we go to this other thing, I just want to, Coop, have you noticed your laugh drop that Colin plays?
I love it. That's me. That's a better me than me, I say.
It's been like his new
If
thing
you
recently.
can't laugh at yourself and what you do,
Yeah.
right?
Amen.
Yeah. Thank you. I don't even have to laugh at myself now.
That's classic.
All right, anyway, should we see who belongs to the Cigar
Yeah,
Insane
let's see who
Asylum?
belongs to the cigars.
Welcome to the Cigar Asylum,
Did you know I'm utterly insane? We all go a little mad sometimes.
where logic and reason cease to exist.
This week, who belongs to the Cigar Insane Asylum, brought to you by CLE and Asylum Cigars.
All right. This week, let's see. This week's inductee is a hypocrite in the purest form. Oh, yeah, this guy. Leland Yee. You know who Leland Yee is? Okay, Leland.
Oh, yeah.
He had risen. No, do you or don't?
I don't.
Oh, because he just made some news the other day.
Oh, yeah.
He had risen steadily in the ranks of the Bay Area politics since the late 80s when he was elected to the San Francisco School Board. From 2006 onward, Yee has served as a state senator and was plotting a secretary of the state campaign when his political visions were curtailed by a federal indictment that came down in 2014. This past Wednesday, he received a 5-year prison sentence for accepting bribes and trafficking in arms. Now, just so you know, he was also one of the...
Well, that's what's the next... Go to the
I would have
court
started
sentence.
with that first.
I know you were going to say that.
Stink at writing.
Court records.
After initially denying culpability, he pleaded guilty to the charges last summer. Court records show that he agreed to perform certain official acts in exchange for a mayoral campaign and later Secretary of State campaign donations. He also discussed buying weapons overseas and bringing them to the U.S. with 2 associates and an undercover agent, of course. He accepted $6,800 and a list of arms to purchase in the Philippines. Right? The maneuver is not only illegal, but also in stark contrast to what he had long been purported to stand for. Lee told CBS 2 years before he was arrested, it is extremely important that individuals in the state of California do not own assault weapons. I mean, that is just so crystal clear. There is no bait, no discussion, unless you're bringing them in.
Talk about cornering the market for yourself, actually.
Cow.
I mean,
he was creating his own demand.
Yeah.
Yep.
This guy's a genius. Holy cow. As a legislator, he supported strict gun control laws and was named to the Brady Campaign Gun Violence Prevention Honor Roll.
Wow, the Brady campaign.
Yes, congratulations, Mr. Yee, on finally getting what's coming to you. You are, without a doubt, this week's inductee in the Cigar Insane Asylum, brought to you by CLE and Asylum Cigars. How you like that one?
There you go.
Gotcha, you sneaky little bastard.
Do Do you study that on weekends during the week to find cool clips?
I should. I'd be better.
You're pretty on point, man. You're pretty on point. All right, man. It's a good show.
Great show. Thanks to Arthur Zaretsky. Thanks to William
Seriously,
Cooper.
thank you, Arthur.
Yeah, thanks for coming in. Always love having you.
Always a pleasure to have you.
So much better in person.
No, I appreciate it. Yep.
Absolutely. But next time, bring a hoagie, damn it.
And Juan Cancel said that, without a doubt...
Who cares what Juan Cancel
Juan
says?
who?
Juan can't ship.
He said you look better than Smokini on camera. He literally posted that. It was weird.
He didn't invite me to go in the booth and model at PCA this year, though.
Throwing one over the bow. Anyway, let's get out of here. Next week, Pete Johnson of Totoya Cigars and Evan Darnell, the Red Meat Lovers Club. We're going to talk about the Red Meat Lovers Club dinner.
The epic dinner.
Tickets may still be available.
There are still some tickets available, yes.
But very few. You might want to go buy them now.
I snagged mine.
Yeah, Coop bought one today.
You're going to miss out if you don't go.
And you'll be the first in the country to try the new extension of the Anarchy series, the Chaos.
Yes.
The Tatuaje Anarchy Chaos.
And
the Pale Horse, which is a cigar we don't know if or when it'll ever be released, but you'll get to have one of those.
We just have to stay on Pete with that one.
Yes.
We'll try and weasel out some answers from him next week.
Here. Yes.
Oh, yes. Till then, and as always, keep it lit.
You're listening to KMA Talk Radio. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter.
We're on Instagram, too.
Yes, it's mandatory.